Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the next installment in this series. I hope that you all are learning as much as I am, because even though I'm producing these, I'm also speaking to myself as a means of developing my own self. So I hope for you it is helping you to develop as well. And as we continue on in the chapters of reconciling with our conscience and some of the myths that may have been bestowed within us in this regard, I want to talk about a subject now that I'm pretty sure many of us have actually been in. We either were benefited by it or we did it ourselves. And that's the issue of fighting with ourselves between defense and white knighting. And it is one big frustration when we are the non-prevailing party of this kind of scenario. So let's go right into it. So let's look at the definitions, as of course we always do. And let's start with defense. The action of defending from or resisting attack. Now let's look at defending to get more in-depth understanding. And the definition states, resisting an attack made on someone or something, protecting from harm or danger. Now there are some compass factors, if you will, for engaging in defense. And what I have discovered in my own walk, it's 6 factors that I learned in language arts, especially when writing invitations, that it appears to also apply in the compass for doing what's right. I have found that this procedure in itself is how we actually think before we speak or even act. So the first one, who? Reconciling with who it is we must defend or defend ourselves against. And I would go as far as to say also we need to consider if it's actually a who or actually a what. I'm sure some of us may have heard that one particular statement before, attack the problem, not the person. What that is saying is resolve the problem. If you can resolve the problem, most likely you might be able to get along with the person if the recipient is willing to reconcile against the problem. So the next one, the what. So once we know who or what we must defend or defend ourselves against, we need to learn all details regarding the situation. The next one, the how. We need to reconcile and know what appropriate actions should be taken to engage defense. The why. We must have a solid reason based on moral principles to exercise defense. Where. We need to know what setting to exercise the defense. And then when. We have to know the right time to exercise the defense. And what I've noticed is all of these factors of application are subsidiaries of accountability. Us taking responsibility for our thoughts, our actions, and our words by thinking about them before we put them into action. And I have found that these 6 steps are a very significant starting point. I suggest you try them. And the more you practice it, the better you will become. So now let's look at white knighting. According to the definition specified by the Urban Dictionary, rushing to the aid of another poster for whatever reason. An accusation typically reserved for when a poster is being hammered by another poster or posters, and the accused leaps in to defend them, usually without thinking things through as to why the person is being attacked. Now, that word being attacked in that definition was very interesting because if we really look at this and our experience with this, we can determine that sometimes we knee jerk react into the scenario just because we see someone reacting emotionally. And we will conclude that because the individual is responding emotionally, that they are automatically being attacked, which is not always true. Sometimes we see a person who is actually being shared light on a situation, but they are being stubborn to consider it. There is a name for this procedure. It's called correction. So that being said, there apparently is a difference between being attacked and being corrected. Being corrected. This is my personal definition based on the factors thereof. The act of being shown one's error or errors with eloquence and genuine motive to assist with developing maturity. Being attacked. The act of being humiliated, belittled, etc., with malicious intent. Now, what is malice? The intention or desire to do evil. So if we combine this and weigh it against the 6 factors of defense, if we don't know who or what exactly we're supposed to be defending ourselves or someone from, we don't know all the details surrounding the issue, if we don't know how to go about it, what solutions to actually apply, if our why is based on malice and we're doing it at the wrong place, which most of the time that wrong place is doing it in a crowd of people, which can cause significant embarrassment and humiliation, especially when it's among a crowd that does not handle mitigation very well. And then, especially when we don't do it at the right time with the win, is when the person may not be ready to receive such correction. Or it may have to be done in steps. It might not be able to be done all at once. It may have to be done in phases. So we have to know that boundary between correcting someone and attacking someone. Common excuses for white knighting. The established relationship between the two, or multiples. That could be either platonic or intimate. But what that is, especially if the one who is being corrected, I'll just put it this way. If the individual is being corrected, but they are reacting with emotion, and your first thought process is to defend them from correction, that can classify as favoritism or bias, which is not excusable for misconduct. Another common reason is a person may have mental conditions. I know this is a very sensitive subject. It is indeed unfortunate. At the same time, this does not grant immunity from consequence when misconduct commences. Correction must still run its course. Age is another one. But how many times have we said age is nothing but a number? Now, it does have some significance. But as we get older and our mental state becomes more and more sophisticated with applying proper logic, the relevancy of age becomes less and less and less. Even for children and adolescents. But the thing is children and adolescents must be educated and shown the paradigm of consequence. For adults, same thing. They likely know better, and consequences likely to take place. Another common excuse is size or even muscular differences. It may have some validity, but it does not nullify consequence. And lack of consequence may even embolden the host's ego. That's really the issue here, is if we start making excuses to white knight someone, whether they're a friend or relative or any loved one, and we're not willing to correct their behavior, and we are not willing to show them correction of their misconduct, we are becoming enablers, and we could end up emboldening their ego to do even worse down the road. We are setting them up for failure. So where can white knighting happen? Based on the facts thereof, it can happen anywhere and everywhere. Family settings, friend, associate, crime groups, authority positions, public office, law enforcement, even online, such as bystanders, authority figures such as moderators, administrators, the site operator itself. It can happen anywhere and everywhere. The discrepancies of white knighting. In addition to what was said before, it is likely to cause confusion and present the wrong message to others. Basically, can express hypocrisy. Because if we're willing to defend their misconduct, then what does that say to other people? It says you're a red flag. Emboldens the ego of the one being coddled. May cause misinterpretation that they are above the laws and moral principles, accountability, and consequence. May resort to additional misconduct, openly disrespectful behavior, criminal behavior. Creates tensions, distrust with those affected and bystanders. Discourages them to speak out about misconduct regarding the individual. It induces frustration, and you could end up labeling yourself as a hypocrite and a safety liability, not only toward others, but to the very individual you are defending against consequence because of misconduct. Common end results, the consequences. The party being defended from correction may end up embarrassed after a reality check that you cannot suppress, such as social rebuke, maybe even a prison sentence. Could also lead to serious injury or death. It could be self-inflicted, car accident, a fall, anything that could seriously injure or even put the body to death. Bystander retaliation, law enforcement intervention, judicial sentencing. And to put this into a bit more perspective, I'd like to use the example of the movie Coach Carter, which was actually based on a true story. And this is the story of Coach Ken Carter, who recognized that in the city he lived in, that Richmond High School, back at the time, the numbers of students that they graduated was not very well considered. And he wanted to affect that change, so he decided for the basketball teams, the student athletes, that he would have them, if they wanted to be on the team, commit to a contract that says they will maintain a 2.3 grade point average, even though the state only required a 2.0. They would attend all their classes, they would sit in the front row of those classes, and they would wear a tie for game day. Now, this seems like a very noble cause, especially since, according to the details of the movie and Coach Carter himself, student athlete, the first word in it is student. Therefore, he enforced that basketball is a privilege. And what he was trying to teach his team was, if you don't have the foundation, you will not be able to enjoy the sport, let alone possibly get in. If their mannerisms are not right, if their foundation of basic living and having the tools necessary for that are not right, they won't be able to enjoy it. He was met with a lot of backlash for it. He had a feud with one of the students, to which one of the students actually attacked him. Now, this is what was in the movie. I don't know if this actually happened, but one of the students in the movie attacked him, and he did not really hurt the student. He just did enough to get the student to stop. And I think that's something we can learn from this, is only do enough to settle down the situation. But it wasn't just that student. There were other students who had problems with the contract and with the system. And the students at one point were winning games. They were literally winning games. They were undefeated. But once Coach Carter found out they were not upholding their end of the bargain related to their academics, he locked the gym and instructed the team to report to the library, and said until they as a team reached their committed goal of maintaining that 2.3 grade point average, the gym would remain locked. And that, unfortunately, started up a storm of issues. The principal was not happy with him. But Coach Carter did not back down. So I want us to listen to this argument, and let's really dissect it.
You put a lock on the gym and force them to meet you in the library. Are you crazy?
Miss Garrison, I'm surprised you know where my office is.
Take the lock off that gym. My phone hasn't stopped ringing.
Maybe someone on the other end of that phone has a solution to our problem.
Your intentions are good, Mr. Carter, but your methods are a bit extreme.
You painted an extreme picture. No one expects them to graduate. No one expects them to go to college.
So you take away basketball, the one area of their lives where they have some success?
Yes, ma'am.
And you challenge them academically?
Yes, ma'am.
And what if they fail?
Then we failed.
Unfortunately, Mr. Carter, both you and I know that for some of these kids, this basketball season will be the highlight of their lives.
Well, I think that's the problem. Don't you?
So as we can hear in one of the comments by the principal that says, take the lock off that gym, my phone hasn't stopped ringing. So there is no real care about the student's education. It's just trying to get the phone to stop ringing. And Coach Carter is upset with that. And then trying to justify the basketball for these students because basically that's the only success that they have. And it's being addressed as if Coach Carter is taking that away from them. But that's not what he's doing. He didn't take it away from them. As a matter of fact, that's not even his goal. His goal is to add to what they already have. But for some odd reason, and this is what happens with us as a society, some of us want to stop at simply just whatever little success we have. And it's really sad when adults such as a principal of a school or even parents, which we will see later, are willing to defend that the only talent their own flesh and blood has is basketball. Let's actually jump forward to that, and let's look at the board meeting in challenging the lockout.
As a teacher, I was offended when asked by a coach to provide progress reports. Nowhere in my contract does it say that I have to do so. It creates more work. But this lockout has brought negative media attention that questions our abilities as educators. End this madness. End this lockout.
I'm Jason Lyle's uncle. That boy lives to play ball. Comes to school every day now. You take away basketball, God knows what he'd be into.
Yesterday, he canceled the Fremont game. Now, that's the biggest game of the year. I have scouts coming to watch my boy play. These boys are 16-0. This whole school, this whole community is behind this team. Everybody goes to every game. Basketball's the only thing that these boys have got. Now, are we gonna let Carter come in here and take that away from them? I don't think so. Not gonna happen.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, Mr. Walters.
I move that we remove Mr. Carter as head basketball coach.
board does not have the authority to terminate employment of a staff position.
Then I move we end the lockout and let the kids play.
So as you can see, the parents were completely appalled. But yet, how is it that a parent could have more emphasis on entertainment than their child's education? So this is a warning to us who have a potential of being a parent. Let us not make the same mistakes as historically. A talent for sports is not the only thing your child has to have. And it should not be the only thing that they have. And it should not be the only thing we as a parent would want for them. Setting them up for failure because we're gambling on a possibility of reaching ESPN, or the child, I should say, going to ESPN and all the other sports networks. But how many other students have that same dream, graduating high school at the same time with the same goal to get into any major sport professionally? But there are only so many openings. And others with most likely skill that the scouters and even the recruiters will have to make some really big decisions about. So what happens if they don't get picked? What are they going to do then? What other skills do they have? That's the issue that Mr. Carter was addressing. And what he was also addressing, it ties into my message today. Listen to Coach Carter's argument in that.
You really need to consider the message that you're sending these boys. It's the same message that we as a culture send to our pro athletes, which is that they are above the law. Now, I'm trying to teach these boys a discipline that will inform their lives and give them choices. If you endorse the fact that 15, 16, and 17-year-olds don't have to honor the simple rules of a basketball contract, how long do you think it'll be before they're out there breaking laws? Now, I played basketball at Richmond 30 years ago. It was the same thing then. Some of my teammates ended up in prison. Some of them ended up dead. I took this job because I wanted to affect change in a special group of young men, and this is the only way I know how to do that. If you vote to end the lockout, you won't have to terminate me. I'll quit.
Coach Carter said that he will quit if they vote to end the lockout. But then something magical happens. As Coach Carter heads over to the gym to pack up his stuff, what does he see there? He sees the student athletes sitting at their desks.
Sir, they can cut the chain off the door, but they can't make us play.
We've decided we're gonna finish what you started, sir.
Yeah, so leave us be, Coach.
And wouldn't you know it, there's Mr. Cruz. You'll have to watch the movie to get the whole story in that. But this just goes to show that correction may have growth pains, but when the recipient finally gets the message, what a turning point it can be. And all of us are capable of this turning point. So how do we fix this? First, we refrain from all bias and favoritism when there is an altercation. If we have the authority or trust to intervene, we must maintain a level head. We must avoid becoming angry and belittling. Untamed anger oftentimes yields the thought process of assumptions and stubbornness. We must use de-escalation tactics. We are to be professional and courteous to all parties involved. We are to hear everyone out. We can be assertive, but not aggressive. We address each person's faults in the situation for what they are. And then we share behavioral correction steps based on the moral principles. And we guide all parties to establish mutual agreements and to commit to those agreements. The first being personal development. If I could sum it up, it would be the classic song by Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror. We start with ourselves. So let's have those hard conversations with ourselves. Do our part in social vigilance so that way we can return our communities to a safe and legitimately productive one. And if we get rid of the white knighting concept, that is a huge plus. Go in peace, everyone.